And if you listen to their stories, you will never find the truth.
Find the truth.
And if you read what they are writing, you find your neck inside a noose.
Welcome to Extreme Brains, the podcast that embraces the chaos of a world gone wild. I'm David Evanoff, along with my fellow brainers and chaos enthusiasts, Sam Goldstein and James Woods. We are broadcasting to you from the semi-luxurious Evanoff Studios, located on the west side of the over-industrialized haven of South Salt Lake City, Utah. South Salt Lake City, Utah, the only place you can be south and west at the same time. Each week we'll dive headfirst into the absurdities of modern life, sharing sharp critiques, unfiltered humor, and just the right amount of existential dread. Our tagline, 3 voices, 1 mic, in a world gone wild. Welcome back, Brainers, episode 6. So glad you could join us, and thanks for hanging in there over these long 6 episodes with us. Right now, I'm pretending that I'm a podcaster, which leads us to our topic today. Why do we pretend?
Well, it's an interesting question. Most people don't even think about that. Why aren't we more just rational? Why do we like to imagine? Why do we like to be entertained in many different ways, from laughing to crying to being angry to feeling aggressive? Entertainment tends to prime our emotions, as it were. But we have a guest with us today, because I thought if we're going to talk about pretending, we should get a pretender. So we have, and he's not in Chrissy Hines' band, by the way.
Not that
He's not
kind of
one of the original pretenders, but he is a man who knows a lot about both pretending and helping other people pretend effectively. Craig Clyde has been in 60 films. He's got a recurring part in Yellowstone, so he still acts. And those of you that know Craig know he plays a cowboy, a sheriff, a rancher, and every once in a while a down-and-out destitute bum on the corner. But he's also directed 22 films, some of which I've been involved with. He and I have written a bunch of scripts. More recently, with Graham Russell, we've written 3 musicals. And are continuing to try and develop and produce them. So Craig's been in front of the camera, behind the camera, on the stage, in front of the stage.
Under the camera.
Under the camera. So he knows a lot about pretending. So Craig, tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you're wearing that Yankee hat.
Okay, I'll get to the Yankee hat first. I had a real problem with this in Boston, as you can imagine, wearing this hat. This is my lucky hat. I've had it forever. You can see it's got a lot of miles on it. This is what I usually wear when I write, by the way, and I just like to have it. Anyway, get that out of the place. Plus, it's cold outside, and I need something to warm my old head. I've been pretending since I was a little kid. When I was a small child, I had what's called mastoiditis, which is mastoid bone in your ear gets infected. I was 5 years old. And I lived in Yakima, Washington, or I lived actually a different town, but I was in Yakima, Washington at the Catholic Hospital St. Elizabeth's. And at that time, they've just put everybody together. And I was with a man who was dying of lung cancer in these big high beds. I was 5 years old. Anyway, a lady, she was a novitiate. It was run by nuns, which I thought was interesting. And that's when they wore the wimples and the big habit. And so they, like Friends of Zorro. And they'd come down the hall, and they did what's called Vespers in the morning at 5. That. And I was 5. It scared the Jesus out of me. But I got used to them. And one of them was a novitiate from Ireland. Her name was Mary Margaret O'Brien. And she was only 19. And she was very nice. And she had me. She was in charge of me. She brought me my lunch and everything. She bought what was called a magic slate. Have you ever seen those? Where you write on them like that? She would come in the morning.
Wax paper.
Right.
It's wax paper, yeah.
It's essentially. But it was a big deal to me. And my mom and dad lived quite a ways away. My dad was a cattle rancher, and my mom taught school at the Indian school. Anyway, she came in and she would draw a picture. She said, "Now, when I come back, I want to know, I want to know a story from this picture." So she'd draw a shark or something like that. And I really got into that. And by lunch, when she came back, I had a whole story for her. And it just kind of started me because I've been pretending my whole life. We didn't have a telephone until I was 14.
Yeah, Craig, by the way, toured. You can tell how young Craig is. He toured with Dorothy Lamour in
In Hello Dolly.
In Hello Dolly. I think that was just after the Civil War ended, or maybe just before World War I.
Barely after that.
But Dorothy Lamour, which as we sit here, neither James nor David nor I can actually picture her. When I close my eyes, all I see is Marilyn Monroe.
Lady.
I don't.
Just look it up.
Yeah,
Very
Dorothy
neat
Lamour.
lady. Taught me a lot. We did Hello Dolly, a national company on the round, and which was very interesting. And I played Cornelius in that. I was very young then. Anyway. So I have been pretending my whole life. I've spent a lot of time alone. My wife still kind of gripes about that. She said, "Oh,
he's a little autistic.
Happy place.
In case you
he's
guys
alone."
didn't know.
Yeah. But that's where I do most of my best thinking and writing, etc. So when I'm working on a project, particularly, I'll close the door and put on my Yankee hat and I'll go to work. And so that's just kind of a quick thumbnail. I have found. I also sing, and I have found that if you think you watch somebody do something, you say, "Boy, I bet I could do that." I found you probably have a talent for it. You probably could do it. I remember thinking I wanted to be in radio, and got in radio after being an English teacher, and then television. After that, I started in film, and I didn't know anything about directing, but I learned very quickly, and the people I worked with were just wonderful people. Bryce Fillmore, Troy Rehovet. And they didn't know a lot more either, but they knew more than I did. And I remember once Troy said, as we were walking past our first picture was called Little Heroes. And he said, if you're going to be in this business, you probably ought to learn the language of cinema, which is very good advice. And so I did.
So, and I think it's kind of interesting because what Craig is speaking to is what we've talked about on a previous podcast, the extent to which if you do something enough, you become more proficient at it,
Absolutely.
although there are limits. No matter how long I sing, I'm not going to sing as well as James, and no matter how long James sings, he's not going to sing as well as I don't know who. But whatever the case may be, so there are probably limits, and that's what we talked about on a previous program is, are we really making the most of our brains? This morning I was writing my blog I write a blog every day for Psychology Today. If you don't follow, maybe go look it up. But today for the blog for tomorrow was about how foolish it is that we think preschool is about pre-learning, and that the majority of the energy of the brain, 150% of metabolism, is before 5.
Yep.
And, learning begins to take place in the crib. Not memorization, but actually learning to think and problem solve and
reason.
And we're experimenting with Dave's little girl, who's 2 now, so it's an ongoing project of developing her drumming and critical thinking and her musical abilities. Notwithstanding, she's got 2 musical parents. You should hear her. She can sing anything, or at least she thinks she can sing anything. So
she tries.
So think back. So that's Craig's first experience pretending. I'll share mine, and maybe James. And so my first experience pretending that I can remember back was in my apartment in Brooklyn. When you came in the door, there was kind of a long hallway before it opened up in a little area, and there was a kitchen and a bedrooms off it, et cetera. And I can remember this friend and I, we were probably 5, and one day we decided the hallway made a great submarine. Because the door had a little peephole in it. You could look through this little peephole, right? And so we made a submarine adventure, and we were pretending we were submariners. And I didn't become a submariner after doing that. I didn't get better at it. I didn't. But what was your first pretend experience?
Probably around the same age. Just playing. I think all kids like to play cops and robbers. That was a big deal. Or me and my brothers would get on our bikes and pretend we were Ponch and John.
Chips guy.
You
are young.
And so yeah, I think all kids pretend. Maybe it's it's things we see that we idolize, then want to aspire to.
Do you think it's baked into the genes? You can see it, but the idea of I'm going to do it.
Oh, I think it is.
Right?
Yeah.
Is it
Kids
sort
are
of
that
baked
way.
into
Yeah.
so play? I mean, we talk about play in other animals as a way of beginning to rehearse life skills, right? And so maybe play, that kind of imagination, helps you begin to rehearse for real life, perhaps. David? What's your first experience with?
The first that I remember, kindergarten, used to be a dancer and a dance teacher here in town, Roland Butler. Remember that name? He and his wife were around forever, and he made a movie. And they grabbed us kindergartners from Oak Ridge Elementary, and they said, you guys are going to be in this film, and you have to create it. And I was a musician at the time, a little tiny 5-year-old pianist, and I started to write some songs and create these characters for this film. And that's the first time I remember. And then you said something that totally reminded me. As a musician, I used to play for the Promise Valley Playhouse.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember sitting in there at 13 years old playing accordion and looking up going, I could do that.
I could do that.
Yeah. And then tried it and learned I had no idea what I was talking about.
So at 5, when what was the name of that show, that impresario who at Salt Lake who used to bring
Oh,
people?
Eugene Gillespie.
yeah,
Eugene
Eugene,
Gillespie.
yeah.
So at age 5, when you played your accordion and then were traumatized because you left the stage and couldn't find your parents, you didn't give up the accordion. You kept playing.
Yeah, I did.
And the piano.
Yeah. But I was scared of Eugene Gillespie.
Yeah, he
A
was
lot
a
of people
scary.
were.
He was
kind of a scary dude.
guy,
Yeah.
right? He was. Okay, so play is one reason we.
Have you noticed 5 got to be a really common answer here?
The age 5.
Yeah, age 5.
Yeah, age 5 maybe.
And they tell me, at least I don't know, but they tell me that you do most of your growth in terms of who you are, but by the age of 5, you're doing.
Really?
You
things.
concur?
I don't know, but the way I think about 5 is in terms of a developmental psychologist, Piaget, who looked at these different stages. And at 5, abstract concepts like life and death, because sometimes I'll test a 4-year-old and we look at a picture and it's a kid fell down and he'll say, oh, he dies. And I'll say, well, will anyone come and help him? Oh, yeah, his mom. And will he be okay? Oh, yeah, he'll be fine, because they don't really...
You don't
That
understand it,
you
yeah.
can imagine anything when you're 5, because there's no boundaries. You don't understand those more concrete phenomena. And then you begin to understand a little bit more about time and what's real and what's not real. And then the last stage for Piaget is more formal operations. The earlier is concrete thinking. It is what it is. The world is black and white. And then and if I think as adults, if we thought that way, we wouldn't be entertained by a lot of the things that now entertain us. But you enter a stage where you can think abstractly about stuff, right? So I guess we could ask, who were the first entertainers? Well, and whose idea was it?
Yeah, really. It's
Right.
like the same idea. Who decided you could pull that thing there and milk could come out and you wanted to drink it?
Well, it's probably random luck, right?
Well, or something.
Or-
But
yeah, some
but
weird-
the
weirdo.
milk thing is interesting, because you could see, they've got our ancestors maybe 100,000, 150,000 years ago start domesticating some animals, right? And so they've got some goats, and I don't know that they have the milk cows, but they have some
They have
goats and
goats,
cows.
certainly.
And they, one guy watches the baby goat nurse on the mother and says,
That might
boy,
be
I
good
wonder
stuff.
I wonder if that's good. I wonder if I should try that. There are these moments in history when you think, how the hell did somebody think to do that? Like eat oysters.
That was
Who
a big one.
thought of that?
was a
I
big-
mean,
my
who
wife
would-
still asks that.
Yeah. Or how about the first guy that wanted to eat lobster and he bit into the shell and this is no good. And another guy, and he threw it down on the ground and it broke. Wow, look what's in here.
Yeah, but they fed it to pigs first.
Did they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was pig food in the colonies. Nobody liked it. It was the stuff you threw away.
Well, see,
Pigs
there
will
you
eat
go.
anything.
So who was the first entertainer? And I guess if the first couple of entertainers weren't entertaining, maybe entertainment wouldn't have evolved any further, and our brains would have evolved in a different direction where we wouldn't be entertained by imagination or by pretend. But
I believe it was storytellers.
Like cave painting?
I was just going to ask,
Yeah.
is that
Cave
cave
painting?
painting?
You know, one thing I've always thought that binds us together as human beings is you can listen to somebody talk about something. Okay, that's it. You write it down. Or they can tell you a story and you remember it, I think, or very often. Stories are much more interesting because you get involved and there's a first, second, third to it, usually a beginning, middle, and end. And somebody had to pretend that. So you look back at the old paintings and it's some guy talking about hunting. Og and I went out. I like the Gary Larson things, but Og and I went out and we killed and, do all this stuff. And they acted out. To me, that's entertainment.
So maybe the first entertainers were really oral history tellers.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing written
There
down.
was nothing written down.
And to go from generation to generation, they would tell the stories, which is very similar to the Aborigines in Australia, who still, I think, don't have a written language per se.
There's a group in Brazil up in the Amazon who still do it. They don't have a written language. And everything is passed orally. And it's usually a woman, oddly enough, who tells the story of the tribe and the people and where they are.
So it starts as having a value and continuity between generations, but then it takes on an entertainment value, right? So maybe to get you to pay attention to me, instead of telling the story in a monotone, and we went here and we went there, we went there, and
You
oh
gotta
my
act
goodness,
it
what
out,
we
act it
saw,
out, yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
and so then we started acting it out. Maybe that's the earliest.
Well, there had to be language before. So.
Yeah.
Some
Greek
sort of
origins, Thespis.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's Greek is even after the Egyptians. So the Egyptians had entertainers, right?
The Greeks, though.
I think, and I don't know about if you go back 5,000 to 6,000 years in Mesopotamia. So there were some big cities there, like it was a city. It's Charles.
Where
Where do you live?
What are we going to call it?
Which part of Southerner? Right. Yeah. It was.
That's where Abraham was from.
But I have, because I collect these historical artifacts and things, because the museums like the British Museum will sell stuff off, and I have a clay marker. It's half because it was broken. That is 5,000 years old, from the city of when they used cuneiform.
right.
Yeah.
And it was used to mark territory, to mark your piece of land. They put it into the ground.
Oh.
And yeah, so
That's
it's not
beast.
that's necessarily relevant to,
They still use markers today.
but they still use markers.
They're just little metal things they
Yeah,
poke,
with the little
poke in the
flag on them,
sidewalk.
yeah.
Right. And the other thing I have from back then is a little figure of Astarte, kind of the first goddess of, and all those goddesses were then women. One of the last show maybe of the series is going to be, if you had a choice, would you have a species of one gender, 2, 3, 4? How many genders would make for a great civilization? And obviously, the way the world is today, a lot of people in our community think there's 35 genders or
Yeah,
whatever the heck
yeah.
there is, but there's really male and female, and then it's whatever your frontal lobes decide you are.
Decide you are, yeah.
Right. I saw a piece today where somebody decided they were a violin.
Yeah.
So they want to be
I
called.
identify as a
Yeah, they
violin,
want to be
yeah.
called a violin. Hey, I can call you anything you want, but just it's that old joke of you can call me this, you can call me that, but don't call me
call me
hey
late for
or
dinner.
hey you or whatever. Yeah.
Don't call me late for dinner.
Late for dinner, yeah.
Late
That's
for
what I
dinner,
remember.
right? Okay, so even before it was organized, right? So the Romans and the Greeks really organized it. So they made it at some point. What started as "Hey, I can do this," became a profession. Mm-hmm. And for me, that point is when others realize somebody does it better than somebody else.
And I'll go watch them.
I went on a tour down at Mesa Verde, actually next to Mesa Verde, where they have ruins as well, Anastasi ruins, on the Indian land. And the Indians, for a day, take you in. And we went to a spot where they found hundreds and hundreds of moccasins. And this one little group of Anastasi, they were good at making moccasins. And so they made moccasins, and they traded the moccasins for
Other stuff.
right? And so 10,000 years ago, everybody did everything, and that's we've talked a little bit about fairness on the show, but that's how fairness came to be an issue. Why is everybody so consumed by fairness? Well, because there was a time when it was fair, but then you figured out you could do something I can't. He could do something I can't, and you
specialize.
see how that's progressed to where we pay people to entertain us millions of dollars
more
an
than we pay
hour
the people to feed us. Yeah.
to entertain us. and if maybe the opening show for the next season is going to be, if I came from Mars, what would I think about human beings? But it's one of those things of, you're telling me you pay this guy who can bounce a ball or throw a ball or pretend he's a secret agent. You pay him millions of dollars to pretend, because really? And what do you pay the teachers? Oh, shit. And what do you pay? No, we don't pay
The farmers.
Well, why not? Well, they don't entertain us.
Yeah,
So
farmers.
look at where we've come, our brains, in terms of the value we place on entertainment, which is partly
Partly
the culture.
escapism, though, too.
Yeah, it's escapism.
Yep.
Partly the culture, but even communist countries, they have the ballet, they have entertainers, they have people that. So it's universal, no matter what your political orientation or philosophy is, or whether you're in a new world, an old world, a third world country. We've evolved culturally to the point where we seek out and idolize people who entertain us.
Would the need for
pretend.
escapism go back 100,000 years? Do you think that evolved?
I think when we come back from a break, I think there are 3 or 4 other reasons that we like to be entertained. Besides, we escape, and besides, we get to, as children, imagine what it would be like to do certain
That's
kinds of things.
imagining.
Yeah,
Don't forget
imagining.
imagination.
But I think there are a few more, and I maybe in our last segment, usually we think about our last segment as having something to do with dogs. And our dogs are very
Dogs are
entertaining.
very entertaining,
They're
yes.
very
You
easily
have 3.
entertained. You don't have to do a
And
whole lot to entertain.
they like to entertain.
Yeah,
They
love
like
it.
to entertain, and I think
they like
so.
us.
Maybe the less intellectually advanced you are, the more easily you're entertained by just some repetitive ball bouncing up and down, right?
I don't pay my dog anything to entertain me.
Well, you do eat it. You do
Yeah,
let
I do.
him
I
eat.
do
Yeah,
feed
yeah.
him.
And you give him love and affection. That's what they really want.
Yeah.
Okay. So there we go.
We'll take a little break. Enjoy this cut from the band Sigmund Freud. And I have great news. It's available on all streaming outlets, Spotify, Apple Music. I even saw it on TikTok last night. So if you want to hear more from the band Sigmund Freud and the new album, please join us online anyplace.
In a rundown honky-tonk, I found my way with a jukebox full of memories. I heard them play the saddest songs like old friends. They knew my part, whiskey tears tonight on a broken heart. Whiskey tears on a broken heart, that's where I'll start. Pour another drink, bartender, and soothe this aching heart. These neon lights can mend what's been torn apart. For tonight it's whiskey tears on a broken heart.
Welcome back in, Brainers. Thanks for joining us. All right, Sam, take us back. Why are we pretending?
Why are we pretending? Well, I got another question, right? And we'll just tease it, and then we'll go back to the other topic. Would it be more efficient for survival if we were all exactly the same? You know, and Gene Roddenberry, who developed Star Trek, if you have a mind to it and you watch all the original Star Treks, each one you can see his thinking about human behavior or about the brain, because they encounter species where everybody's exactly the same, which I don't think any species could be to survive. I don't think if you all have the same genes and there's some disease or something, then everybody's gone. So now the question is, how much diversity do you need in the gene pool for optimal development, for optimal survival, for optimal evolution, as it were? And one of the questions you can raise about our species is, have we crossed that threshold? Meaning, is there so much diversity in our gene pool now that it begins to work against us, that there's this sweet spot where if you have enough diversity, no matter what happens, there's some people who will thrive, some people who will not. Most people will be in the middle. But maybe we've crossed the sweet spot to where some genetic changes actually do more harm than good.
Well, I'd ask, based on what you've said before, our cave story. Go in, there's the bear, so we learn not to go in the cave. As we progress as a species and we encounter whatever we encounter, new viruses, an alien that comes down one day, won't we need that development continually to adapt to whatever comes our way?
We would, but in the moment, we wouldn't see it because it's hundreds, if not thousands, of generations. I mean, one of the reasons we're losing the battle against viruses or other microbes is because they can reproduce 100,000 times and mutate and modify in the time it takes us to do it once. And part of the reason I think we're still here is that those kinds of hitchhikers, as it were, it pays for them to be able to get into your system. But if they kill you too quickly, they have no ability to reproduce.
Right.
And so what happens is it starts out that they kill you too quickly, and then those particular versions don't survive, but the genetic mutations of fellow generations of these viri. Imagine if you're a virus and you could look over and see your great grandfather who just is sitting over there next to you, who was born a day before you, right? Yeah. And imagine that what happens then is that in order to survive, you have to not kill your host. And there is the reason why with the virus, we're not going to have a show on COVID because I'm just going to get in trouble.
Right.
But therein is why Omicron was so much milder, because the original strain of the virus probably killed a lot of people, but as it mutated, it said, boy, if I keep killing these people, I'm going to kill off all the hosts. I'm not going to. So what happens is you become less potent in exchange for keeping your host alive, in exchange for the opportunity to mutate and survive.
To keep going, yeah.
Right, and that's that. I mean, imagine if in the big picture, when God was sitting around with his angels, he said, we're not going to. Somebody said, well, that's what we're going to do with viruses. The more they reproduce and copy themselves, the more dormant and placid they'll become. And, the devil was sitting next to God, who said, screw that. No, over time, they're going to get worse. They're going to kill you. Well, we'd all be gone by now. Thousands of years ago, we'd all be gone, right? So it's an interesting idea of how much mutation do you need. Now, bringing that back to the topic of today, have our brains, and it's hard to say we've mutated over just 4 or 5 generations, go back 10 generations, say 100 years or so, or have our brains changed that much that we're no longer entertained by the things that used to entertain us? Is that nurture or nature?
I think it's technology.
Well, that would be nurture, right? So because I think about the shows that used to entertain me, and every once in a while when I'm working with kids and we get to talking about TV shows, I'll get out my computer and I'll pull up Gilligan's Island or My Three Sons or Mr. Ed, and the kid looks at me like I'm nuts. You watch that? I'd never watch that. It's black and white.
And it's terrible.
It's terrible. It's black and white. But it's story driven.
If you watch Bluey, I watched a million of those.
Right.
And my grandchildren, I think they're terrible. I think they're pretty
right.
low-key.
All of them are, they've, and what's happened is the people that that make them, just like the people who design casinos, have an ulterior motive: make money.
Yep.
So they design them. Look at the Blippi. Mm-hmm. If you're familiar with you are, because you're a little girl, these amorphous characters that don't have any gender and are different colors. They look like kind of how a tooth would look when you pull it out and let it blow it up with air and let it walk around. And it's Blippi. And the kids seem to really be little kids. And then there's an age at which
they won't care anymore.
Not entertaining anymore. And so if this continues, What will it take?
Well, look at Barney the dinosaur.
Right.
I mean, geez Louise, that was everywhere. And when my grandchildren who are grown now were little, that was everywhere.
Right. Barney the purple dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
Teletubbies.
Teletubbies, right?
yeah.
In the last episode, we'll talk about what's going to be the future. But I just as long as you bring up Barney, I got to tell you a story. This is a good story. So I worked with this young man with autism, very bright, and I've worked with him since he was 3. He's now an adult, and he liked Barney. And every time he came to see me, he'd have Barney shoes on, Barney shirt on, Barney this, Barney that. All we could talk about, he has autism. So all we could talk about is Barney, right? And now he's old enough that he's going to go to school. Okay, kindergarten, Barney's fine. Now he gets a little older and he's going to go to middle school. And his parents have a discussion. You can't take that Barney backpack to middle school. Well, why not? Well, it's not going to be good for you. And his bishop, his clergy, talks to him, and his mother says, "Sam, can you talk to him?" And he can't, because the hallmark of autism, which we've discussed previously, is you can't take anybody's perspective. So he assumes everybody loves Barney.
Mm-hmm.
So I convince him, don't take the backpack to school. So instead, he gets a new backpack and he puts a little Barney keychain on it. Fine. But I'm not smart enough to figure out how creative he is. So he goes to middle school the first day, and they assign kids a place to sit for lunch with kids they don't know. And the first thing out of his mouth, because we had a discussion about initiate conversation, make friends, is, "Who likes Barney?" Well, most kids just went like this, but there were 2 kids at the table who went, "Yeah, loser." And he became picked on, a bully, to a point where it was really bad, right?
Yeah.
They'd call him Barney Boy. And I called him Barney Boy, but not to his face. And so we have this discussion, and he just doesn't understand why. What's the problem? And then one day, his mother sees his door is closed. This kid didn't close his door to get dressed. His door is closed. She opens his door, and he is dressed, and he's watching Barney. And she asked, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, I think I finally understand what Dr. Sam is saying. Kids think I'm a baby because I watch Barney." And so his mother asked, "Well, but you're watching." He said, "Yeah, but I closed the door so you wouldn't know." Now, this is 2 giant steps for this kid who suddenly realized other people have ideas about you that you don't have. We all have trouble explaining that, right? And the other one was he decided to do what the rest of us would do if we want to engage in an illicit behavior like eat Haagen-Dazs out of the refrigerator. We'll do it at 2 a.m. when everybody's sleeping, right? So that now I could talk to him about what other people think. And with people with autism, till they make that change. And some kids do it.
Don't.
Most kids do it when they're 6 or 7, but some kids do it. And maybe that's why 5-year-olds don't worry about what anybody else thinks. And I have adults who can't figure that out. But it's one of my favorite stories of all time.
What about
Barney.
a 12-year-old who's still so Batman-oriented he can't think of anything else? Getting ready. He didn't go to middle school.
Right. And hopefully you're not speaking about anyone that's a blood relative of yours, because I have to be careful what I say.
No, just
But
that's why I ask you.
Well, I'd have to know more about him, but I would say he's immature. Now,
Right.
He could be immature because intellectually he's slow in developing, and his ability to think about the world is like a 7 or 8-year-old who's immersed with Batman and wearing Batman underwear and still thinks he could be Batman someday. Or it could be he understands he's not Batman and that he's not going to be Batman, but he has this obsessive nature in which he picks a topic and that's all he can talk about.
Yeah.
That's all it doesn't mean he's got autism.
No.
But yeah, and
Just
again,
go to Comic-Con.
and he's right. Well, and again, look, let's talk about
40-year-olds
the other
dressed up
reasons.
like Barney. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about the other reasons people want to be entertained, and to the extent we've taken it to there's Comic-Con, right, and there's
it's
cosplay.
Huge. It's huge.
And it's
it's all this
serious.
other
It
stuff.
is spooky to watch
and-
people dressed up.
Yeah,
like,
and some of the people I see, it is a great outlet for them because it's the only time they get out and the only people they
They see.
interact with, and but you wonder, where was the cosplay when I was a kid? I mean, I did I dress up as Mickey Mouse? No, maybe I was Roy Rogers for a couple of years, And then I don't know about you, Craig. These guys aren't quite old enough. David is. Then I was the man from U.N.C.L.E.
Awesome.
I love that.
I was the man from U.N.C.L.E. and I was Napoleon Solo because I wasn't going to be some Russian communist.
Ilya Kuryakin.
I was Napoleon Solo, and on my 7th birthday, because it was the first shows, they were in black and white,
Right.
remember? And my 7th birthday, all I wanted was the man from U.N.C.L.E. gun.
Well,
With
they
the
had
shoulder
a whole
holster.
set,
It was
yeah.
a golden gun and my parents got it for me, and then I was,
What a great
I was
gift.
on my way, right? And the submarine then turned into a sports car.
Yeah, there you go. It was women.
So why else? So why else do we like to be entertained? And again, look at how it's progressed from telling stories to keep history alive to maybe escaping. Do you think?
Why do people have to sit in front of the TV but they won't read a book? And I find that highly entertaining because you go to other worlds. I mean, I started off with books because my mom was an English teacher, so we didn't have a TV. But I wonder today about it.
And I still have kids that I work with who come in carrying a book, Percy Jackson or some
Yeah.
of these series
Yeah,
that they really
Slinger. Yeah.
like. I'll tell you what I think from the kids I've talked to. Again, some of them are not good readers.
Right.
And some of them, a lot of them think that reading is about decoding, and they spend so much time trying to read that they never realize, no, reading is about gathering knowledge,
Right, and
being entertained and
very
learning.
often losing yourself.
But I see a lot of kids who can't see the movie in their head, so it's interesting that you, as a filmmaker, you can read a book and see the book in your head. And when I read novels, or you and I have had this discussion, when I read screenplays, I assign faces to the characters. Sometimes
Absolutely.
people I
Sure.
know, when I started reading, when we started working on our third musical, Dead Certain, and the lead character is this haphazard fellow who's has a little ADHD, a little learning disability, who works for his uncle, and he does the makeup and the embalming. I have to tell you, James, it was your face when I would read the script. I put your face, and this is how the guy's going to look.
Hey,
I don't.
I got a whole new
I don't know.
line
Yeah,
on
I
that.
don't. Yeah,
And I don't.
if that's good or
I don't
bad.
say that in any negative way. It just kind of. I don't think I force the images. I don't sit and think,
No, some just come
It
to
just
you.
comes to
They
my
just come to-
head,
to come
and
to
I
me,
thought, okay,
too.
that's who it is.
And when I write something, the characters become very, and I describe them a little, but you leave it to the imagination again of the
Right. reader.
and that's
Right.
very important.
Right, which is why, a book, as it were, you could spend 2 pages describing what's taking place around the character, and in a movie you don't
You
do
got
that.
2 lines or 3.
Yeah, you have nothing. What I learned when
Shorthand.
writing for the theater, because Craig and I wrote together for screenplays. He's the master. I learned from him. But you always describe what the scene is. Sun is coming up. There's haze in the air. There's gunfire in the distance. And when you write for the theater, the director says, don't tell me what's in the scene.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
write any descriptions. No
descriptions.
descriptions. And how could you have no descriptions? What the hell is wrong
You
with
do have
this
to have
industry?
some scene movement, but
Yeah,
it's
nothing.
right.
We had
It's
to
very
take
different.
out all the description. And I went, how are you going to understand the character if you don't understand the context within which the character is operating?
That's why I like film, because I see the whole scene, which is why I started directing, because I knew where I wanted the camera. But I saw everything, not just the people and what they were going to say and what was going to happen, but I saw where they were and where it needed to be and all that. And that, to me, is pretending.
Right. Now I got a question for you, and I'll ask each of you. So I sit down with the wife, and we're going to watch a movie.
Right. How do you pick, by the way?
Well, and
It
nowadays
takes an hour.
it's hard to pick.
Yeah.
And
billions.
I thought of starting an app where you could put in information about yourself, what you like,
And it would pick for you.
recommend movies. Because I get a thing from Netflix, and I think they do the analytics. They because I do a thumbs up or thumbs down, so they know what I've watched, and maybe they recommend things. I don't know how digitized it really is, how AI
It's
it
pretty
is.
much.
But we sit down and watch a movie, and I immediately gravitate towards action. I want shooting. I want lots of action. And she wants
That's
kind
a
of
boy
a
thing.
romance.
That's a boy thing.
Yeah, but is it a boy thing?
It is. It is.
Well, and I'm not saying it's not, because
Certainly close.
the research on the idea that kids learn that isn't true, because when you put little kids long before they've really been screwed up by their environment around toys, the boys gravitate towards aggressive kinds of toys and
Action, such as
activities,
toys.
and the girls gravitate towards
Dolls
other kinds
and
of things,
homemaking
taking
and
care of things.
peace,
And
yeah.
in some ways it makes sense, because 100, 200,000 years ago, the men would go out hunting. We've talked about this.
After the Tyson
And the women
Revolution.
would stay back, not only to take care of the children, but to make sure there was something to eat, because most of the time the men came back with nothing.
Yeah.
They wandered around, and who knows what the heck they did, but they wandered around and they didn't catch anything. Once in a while they caught something, but most of the time they didn't get stuff. But this idea that we need to be entertained. I had a kid ask me, this was a different kid, because we were talking about technology, and I said, well, there were no video games when I was a kid, and there were no. There was no recorded movies you could just pull up and watch. There was no online games. And he looked at me like, well, what did you do all day?
Yeah.
What did you
we
do?
made up things.
And I thought about it. I said, I don't know. What the heck? I played in the submarine a little bit, and I was the man from U.N.C.L.E., but what did we really do with all of our free time as a kid? But let's come back to the movie. James, what kind of movies do you gravitate towards? Forget about Jill. What kind of movie do you want to watch?
Definitely excitement and anything historical.
Oh, cool.
Can it be historical without violence?
Yeah,
Without
it can
fighting?
be. But I think everybody loves that excitement transfer,
Like that series that
vicarious aggression.
Like Game of Thrones.
right?
or-
Well, like Michael Douglas did, the series on Ben Franklin. That was historical. But you use the word vicarious aggression. Is it so? Does it imply catharsis that we watch other people be aggressive, and it lets us shed our aggressive
Relax,
thoughts
yeah.
or feelings? But the research shows us the other way around. If you let kids watch a lot of aggressive media, they behave more aggressively.
More aggressively.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, especially kids who are already prone to be aggressive, they behave more aggressively.
I would say more the excitement transfer. It's back to the brain. It fulfills that part of the brain, the excitement.
And truth be told, I could watch. Sherry could pick a movie, and it could be a little more romance-oriented. We watched one the other day about some girl who buys a villa, a house for £1 or €1, and that in these Italian villages you can buy a house for €1.
I've
if
seen
you
that.
promise
Yeah,
to
that's a
come
good
in.
movie.
And so she buys it, and her father comes out there to bring her back home again, and he falls in love with And I thought, I'm not going to be entertained by this, but I was. So if you and I watch those things, would we actually be pretty entertained? We just have an aversion to, I don't want to watch that chick film, right? What do you gravitate towards, David?
My guilty pleasure is, since I was a tiny kid, has always been horror films.
Oh,
Love-
really?
Love horror films of all kinds. Gothic, brutal.
From Saw
So-
to Frankenstein.
So do you like
grew
being
up on the
scared?
Universal Monsters,
Yeah.
watched them all. Yeah.
Do you like being scared?
Yes.
And do you like the fact that you're scared but there's no danger?
Yes.
So if I put you in those scenarios and they were real, would you like them?
No.
No.
Right. So what is that all about?
He's pretending.
He's
Pretending.
He's letting somebody else take the hits, but he's pretending right along with them.
right. Isn't that interesting?
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think, and I think, as you point out, there's this curiosity. We're entertained by the circus sideshow kind of used to come to town with the bearded lady, and we're entertained by the
oddities.
bizarre, the oddities.
Yeah.
Why does that entertain us? Which is kind of bizarre.
You watch Greatest Showman? That's wonderful.
Yeah, we are entertained by that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, when you start to think about it, can you imagine a world where we didn't seek any form of entertainment? Maybe we could
We'd all
start
be
with that.
accountants.
We'll all be accountants. Now we've all lost all our accountant listeners. But we'd all be dogs, maybe.
Maybe.
So let's see.
All right, let's take a little break. We'll be right back after this cut from the band Sigmund Freud.
In the quiet of the night, under starlight's glow, nothing is unseen where the heart dare go. Whisper in the wind, a story to be told. Remember the eyes of the soul. Love is always. It's not that we can't find our ways. In the eyes of the soul, our hearts will find a home.
Welcome back, Brainers. Thanks for being with us. Segment 3. Let's take this home. Why do we pretend?
Well, and let me first tell Craig, because he may not know, we coined a new word called brainers.
I like it.
It isn't in any dictionary, and we've defined it as either people who participate in or listen to the Extreme Brains podcast. And so far, there's about 100 brainers. And growing.
Growing.
So there we
Well,
go.
there's a lot of brainy
And this
people
is
out there.
entertainment to some extent, right?
Well, it
Sure.
is. That's the whole idea.
Although I like to think that it's that entertainment that combines acquisition of knowledge.
Absolutely informative.
is
But that's
really
why you
the
listen. You
best
get the
kind of
knowledge, but you're
entertainment.
entertained.
That's why I love
Well, you brought up
documentaries.
on our break documentaries.
Yeah, that's
which,
why I love
man,
documentaries.
so entertaining, but so
So there's,
filled with knowledge.
There's a couple of things that one is considering what started as talking around a fire and slowly progressed to an industry, even in Greek and Roman times, that eventually progressed to more organized entertainment, hence unions for actors. Here's a kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah, no
you're an
kidding.
actor and you're in a union.
Yeah, no
okay,
kidding.
all right. And it's now progressed because we had no concept that 300 years ago you'd have film or you'd have
No, any of
television or radio, or so it's progressed, or you'd have arenas. Although the Romans had big arenas where they could put 40 or 50,000 people to be entertained by what? Death.
Death, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Entertain the ultimate entertainment. Somebody dies. That's the ultimate entertainment, right? Which is why these reality shows where there's some risk, something bad could happen
What is
to
yeah,
you.
the new $1 million one, whatever it is.
Why they proliferate, right? So entertainment had a historical value in terms of history. It allowed us to imagine, enhance survival. You practice certain scenarios so that when they really happen, and a lot of those scenarios are what we watch on movies or television. It lets you connect. It lets you be curious. As you say, David, you like these horror films, so you entertain your curiosity of what would happen if I was in that haunted house. I'd play the accordion and everybody would be happy.
They would
They'd all
run away. They would run away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
play the accordion. Okay, so two things. Let's think about first. So what's the downside of all this? What's the downside of the fact that our species is now literally starved for entertainment? That some people, from the minute they get up till the minute they go to sleep, have to be entertained. And the phone is a way to do it. They play games.
Yeah.
They communicate with people. They spy on people. They whatever they're going to do till the moment they go to bed. And maybe it's different kinds of entertainment. It's one screen for another screen, or it's one sound for another sound. But we are a species now that almost continuously has to be entertained. Do you ever drive in your car without the radio? Well, we'll put him aside because we haven't talked about his mental health problems on this program. He's the only guy I know. If I text him when he's driving, this thing comes up on, this is focus.
Right.
I will not be distracted when I am
That's
driving.
Your thing says that.
No,
To me.
No, I don't have that. I get messages when I'm driving. I'll have
I don't
to
have
look.
focus.
You do. I'll show you. Here.
Well, no, I thought
Here's the message I sent you when I was waiting for you for lunch, and it sent back, I'm driving with focus on, and I can't be
I don't have
disturbed.
focus. I just turned the radio off or the phone
No,
off.
it's. I'm going to show you because.
Well, what is focus? I didn't.
Well,
know
I don't
had
know.
that.
I'll tell you.
I thought it was you. Every time I see it,
It was an
This
app
is a
that came
great
with your
moment
phone,
here.
probably.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me narrate.
It's, here
Sam
it
is
is.
checking his phone out right now. He's looking for a
He's
message.
scrolling. He's
Well,
Because
I-
he is going to
I
prove a
apologize
point.
for that. Usually I try to answer. No, I
Well,
don't
it says,
answer while
so
I'm
it says I'm
driving.
driving with focus on, don't interrupt me. But the reason I say, oh, even that, and then it says, do you want him interrupted? So I even have the option of overriding your.
I didn't know I
right,
had that.
but we very rarely, if
So
ever.
then you question your phone call. You're like, should
we
I?
never, so we never. We have to be entertained all the time, and phones used to do that. You'd go to the waiting room to wait for whatever, like a doctor's visit or something, and people would read a magazine or whatever. And now you go and everybody's got their phone up, and so I'll ask two questions. A two-part question. One, what is the future of entertainment for the human species? Have we become so dependent on being entertained that if we had to live without entertainment, we couldn't? And two, what will entertainment morph into 50 or 100 years from now? Because the stuff that entertains us today, 50 years ago, like, for example, if they really do develop a three-dimensional television where the TV will take place, the action will take place in your living room.
You probably
You'll
will.
see it from three dimensions. And so when that comes out and we get used to that, will we go back and look at two-dimensional television and go, how do
No,
people ever watch that?
I would never watch that, yeah.
Yeah, what do you think, James?
When you grew up, though, you didn't have a TV, right?
Oh, see, now that's a good question.
yeah.
I got a black and white RCA television when I was 3.
Oh, God.
Oh,
And we got it was the size of a house.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
not you
built
personally, but your family.
my family.
Okay.
And
it had
we had one TV, and you built your living room around it because it was so
Gigantic,
large,
yeah.
right? And it was so deep because the tube was so deep. And I actually have a memory when I was about 6 or 7. I have a lot of memories of watching TV with my dad, on Saturday afternoons, Wide World of Sports.
And stuff,
And then there'd be the afternoon movie on CBS, and we'd watch the movie. And I have this memory of the first time my parents decided to go out and leave me home without a babysitter. And I was about 7 or 8, and the what my mother said to me was, "Well, you're not alone. You have the TV."
That's
And
interesting.
I have the TV. Okay, great. So I sat in front of that TV about 6 inches, watching,
Yeah.
looking around, holding my little pocket knife in case somebody broke into the house. And that
Well,
was,
see, I'm older than
He
you
lived
are.
in
My
New York.
first memories
black and
are
white.
being under the table, listening to Inner Sanctum.
Radio. Yeah.
see,
there you go.
I was all, again, a couple of years maybe.
It
but
was.
the fact that I was in New York City, and TV maybe came sooner.
No, I'm sure it did. Than
But
where
I
was,
don't have any
the Yakima
memory
Indian
of
Reservation.
listening to radio programs. And that's kind of a lost art now. Right. Although it's in podcasts, it's come back in some ways because there are podcast series that people listen to. That
Absolutely.
for
I listen to
entertainment.
podcasts in my car more than I do music.
Entertainment podcasts, or
No,
Right.
again, document or learning
Infotainment.
stuff.
But there's a number of series.
Infotainment, yeah.
But there's a number of series of stories,
there
ongoing
are,
stories that
yeah.
people
You bet.
subscribe to. Right.
True crime.
I listen to
True,
books.
yeah, lots of true crime.
I
yeah.
listen to books all the time.
Yeah, books. Well, there you go. Let's go back. It's 14, what is it? 1430, whatever. The printing press gives books to the masses. So since then, we've all been reading.
Well,
we've all been
right.
entertained.
Well, but let me interject. The printing press allowed them to reproduce things. They still didn't give it to the masses.
well,
That is, reading was
The
a
door was
special,
open.
Yeah, reading was a special thing, and
Only
not
the
everybody
church had it.
has the right to learn how to read. And my personal beef is that the written word has been used to subjugate women. That wherever the written word proliferates, women get taken advantage of because men run the religions. All the religious icons, Siddhartha, Christ, whatever, none of them were ever considered kind of the deity. Or why didn't they look? Mary gives birth immaculately, and the baby gets the credit. I don't understand that. She's the one who did the magic. Why didn't they raise her up to a deity and say,
Well, they
"Look,
kinda
this
have.
woman"? Yeah, it took 300 years because
Yeah, they kinda
John
have.
screwed her. I mean, this is my personal beef at times with the downside. I think religion plays a lot of important roles in our lives, but the downside is, I mean, if you had a picture of a family and it was torn, and on one side you saw the father and the child, and you saw an arm on the other side, and the torn piece was missing, and I said to you, who's missing in this picture? What would you say?
Mother.
Mother.
Mm-hmm. No, it's the Holy Ghost. What do you mean it's the Holy Ghost? Where's Mary? Oh, she didn't do anything. She was just God's vessel. And I'm going to get in trouble here. So
Yeah, you are.
I'll
You're
stop.
gonna-
So wouldn't
I'll
that
stop.
be
It's
our
not an
longest
anti-religion.
running entertainment?
Religion.
Well,
Well, yeah.
Storytelling. Yeah, that's.
I mean,
that's
go to
also-
Oberammergau, and they did the Passion plays for how long? Since 1560, I think.
Right. Right. And again, just to be clear, I think religion is because it's built on belief, and it allows you to feel okay about a lot of things that you don't know about.
Right. You don't have facts.
That you don't have control over. You don't have. So I think it's played a very important role in our lives, despite the fact that you look at the downside and say, oh, more people have been killed in the name of religion than anything else. And yeah, that's because we're a violent, aggressive species. We've discussed that before. That's not religion's fault. That's our fault.
yeah.
Watched a lot of horror movies.
We've been entertained. However, that has progressed. Do you fear our need and our growth of entertainment? Or do we just adapt like we did from book to radio play to movie to television to?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So here's an experiment, and it's up to you to get everybody to sign on. We're going to turn off all media, not books, but all media. All entertainment will go black for a week. No TV, no radio, no video games, no screens, no nothing for a week. And I think if Craig, if we were going to write a script, it would be like that.
That's very dystopian.
It would be like The Purge. It would be like that movie, The Purge. Right? Because I think there are some people who would just
Go crazy.
So what you speak to is, are we addicted to being entertained? Are we no longer able to entertain ourselves? James knows that I do some of my best thinking when I'm just sitting in the hot tub. And I'm not entertained. No music, nothing's on, and I just run through stuff in my head.
That's what I do.
I am entertained by what's in my head, for sure. But are we, in a sense, addicted? If you define addiction as you can't help yourself and the engagement in that activity causes you harm, right? So you love music. It's not an addiction. It's not causing you any harm. In fact, you've made a career out of it. You love this theater. It doesn't cause you harm. I think for me to be an addiction, it has to begin causing problems. And therein lies the rub why, as a quick aside, the mental health experts who create these diagnoses, which we've talked about in the past, the first diagnostic manual for mental health problems came out in 1952 when I was born, and it was about 20 pages. And there was nothing in there about kids. And now it's 800 pages. So we've become a lot more mentally ill in the span of 75 years or so, which is interesting. But there's this debate, should you define gambling as an addiction? Should you define video game playing as an addiction? Should you define someone who loves to play music and spends all of his free time playing music as an addiction? Should you define my writing, because now I've gotten into writing something every night for Psychology Today for the next day, is that, and now I really look forward to sitting down and figuring out some idea to write about, is that an addiction? And there's been a lot of debate about it. What if you like crocheting and you crochet a lot all day long, but it doesn't interfere with your life in any way, shape, or form? Then it's not an addiction. It's a passion, but not an addiction. And therein lies the rub when people say, oh, kids are addicted to video games. Well, there are a lot of kids who play video games but can put them aside when it's time to do your homework or do other things. It's the kids who can't regulate themselves. And I think that's the same 10 or 20% of the population that has problems with any kind of activity addiction or chemical addiction or whatever the case may be.
I have a question for you. And you mentioned this, and it brought up this question to me. We talk about, remember when you and I were in New York, and I remember being in Times Square, and we were walking down the street, I'm fairly tall. So I did not see one head up. They were all like this. Now, if it's not an addiction, but it's all entertainment, and you said, well, take it away for a week, I think you'd have riots. But the thing is it taking us farther away from each other?
Oh,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but a couple of things. One, to say context, one of our plays ran in New York, and we were in New York while they were doing all the rehearsals, and so what you're saying is people are walking in the street looking at their phones, right? Well, that's going to cause problems because you're going to bump into people. You're going to
get run over.
There is a potential problem with it, and I'll have kids that will say, well, I have friends. Well, when was the last time you saw your friend? Yesterday. Well, when was the last time you were actually in a room with your friend? Oh, last year. So
when was the last time you played with your friend?
What defines play? They'll say, I play with my friends every day. We get online,
and play video games.
Together,
go out and play baseball,
and
or
we
soccer,
talk to each other.
Right.
Well, how these phenomena change, and the issue is, it doesn't matter how many friends you have. It's growing up. If you have a couple of friends, and you know how to make a friend and keep a friend, then you'll have a satisfactory social life as an adult. But how many do you need? That's unclear. And is it the case that kids today, who the majority of their interactions with friends takes place electronically, what will their adult life be like
exactly
in terms of personal relationships? I don't think any of us know, but I do know that when we pick a specific variable like school performance, which is very important to parents, right? So multiple studies have demonstrated that at least if you're a teenager, which is 12 to 18, at least 8 hours of sleep and a certain number of calories of protein and carbohydrate a day, and no more than 2 hours a day on screens, regardless of whether it's school or that's the great, what would be the right word, description of the Jewish word is chutzpah. After the American Academy of Pediatrics, after telling everybody, don't let your kids spend too much time on screens, sits by idly while the world closes up ostensibly to protect us from COVID and says, oh, it's okay for kids to spend 6 more hours in front of screens. And they didn't issue any statement saying, hey, you know what? Don't do it. Close the schools. Let the kids stay home for a year. But putting them in front of the screens, and now they're in front of screens 8-10 hours a day. We've created this in some way, and it's a horror film experiment because we don't know it's a Frankenstein experiment because Frankenstein didn't know whether his progeny would actually get off the table after he ran 1 million volts of electricity through his body. We really don't know. What we do know, and what we spoke about in a previous episode, is that the rates of mental health problems among teenagers has increased over 8 generations. And before COVID, we've talked about this, it was maybe 1 out of 5 teens had a depressive episode, and now it's 1 out of 2. Some of that is reporting, some of that is the availability of support.
But even 1 out of 3 is a lot.
Through telehealth.
Yeah.
Right. But that was 1 out of 4 maybe.
Adults too, right?
And adults too, right? Adults too. So I think it's an experiment for which we can't control the variables, and we don't have any hypotheses about the outcome. And when I went to school and I trained as a scientist, which is you control all variables and manipulate one to see what happens. So when we mix music, David, let's bring the bass up and see how everything else sounds. We don't say, oh, let's bring everything up, change everything, and then see how it sounds. We change one variable at a time. In a sense, mixing music is like doing a research study, a good research study. But here we're doing a research study in which we have no control sample. We have no idea what the risks are physically, psychologically, and we really have no idea what the outcome is. We have a hope and a prayer. Oh, kids are going to be okay. So far, we've been wrong. Kids are not okay.
They're not okay.
They're not okay, right? And so now we come to the last part, not the dog part, but the part, well, one, what will be entertainment like in the future? Who knows what will entertain us? But it seems that the threshold for what is entertaining keeps going up. Which is why Blair Witch Project was an anomaly. Oh, I'm going to be entertained by somebody carrying a little camera around and shaking it in the woods. Nobody thought anybody's going to pay attention to that. It's a nice standalone production, but mostly you can't sell anything like that. I mean, supposing we went back and we made Mr. Ed 2, and we've got Mr. Ed's grandson, Mr. Bob, who lives with this young family, and the kids are always on their technology, and he talks, and the only one can hear him talk is one of the kids, and we did it in black and white, and we had three locations, a barn door, and a living room, and an outside. Would anybody give us the money to make it, let alone would anybody watch it?
Yeah.
So I don't know about that. But
I think people would be less surprised of a horse talking today than they would back then.
It was...
Right, because people think everybody can talk.
Yeah.
Did you see the video going around on all the media? It's some rock and roll guitar player, and his little baby is supposedly playing guitar with him. Oh. The kid can't be, but you look at his face, he can't be but 2 years old, and he's playing the guitar, and it's like deep fake.
Yeah.
Now we're entertained by deep fake.
And AI.
And AI, and you know what's going to. I could envision 50 years from now we have an app that you capture yourself and it puts you. You can make yourself. It's got this story already.
You're in the movie,
and it puts you in the movie.
Sure.
And you buy this movie of James Bond
400
version, episode 57 in the James Bond series, and it's you. And you could put yourself, into it. I mean, maybe
not a terrible idea, by the way.
Right, it's not a terrible. We can't do it yet, but maybe we can. We should talk to those guys we had lunch with and see if they can do it. But so in the last couple of minutes, just think about a world without entertainment, and is there a way to use it therapeutically to make our lives better? Just quickly, I have a technique that a mentor of mine, Richard Gardner, one of my supervisors 50 years ago, taught me, called I Can Tell a Story. And in I Can Tell a Story, the idea is to use the story to create an idea in a child's head and create a better resolution. And so you put out all of these little figures on a table, people and animals, and you pick one, but it's reciprocal storytelling, unlike what your nun did.
Right.
It's I pick out a little cow and I say to the kid, this is Mickey the cow, and Mickey grew up with his mom and dad living on a farm in New Hampshire. And then the kid has to say, but Mickey didn't have a good life, or whatever the kid has to say. And then I say something, and he says something, and I say something. And the idea is that in a Freudian projective way, the kid begins to portray the issues that are on his or her mind, and I portray a better resolution. And with some kids it works really well. With other kids, it's like, this is stupid. I don't want to do this. Where's my phone? Right? Where's my phone? Let's. But even as we sit here, so I have a kid. Joey, what do you see on the screen? A chessboard, right? Mm-hmm. So the way I connect with this very bright young man. And I won't speak about what issues he has or what he's done great. And I've known him, I think, 10 years. He's 18 now. We play chess through the message, right? Which kind of connects us.
That's great.
Right, which kind of connects us. And when we visit, we don't talk about chess necessarily, but we have this kind of connection. So there are ways to use media to create connections, but that's an in-person and both a technology connection. But how can we use? Are we on a wagon with no one steering, and we're just along for the ride?
Calvin and Hobbes.
Or can we use entertainment to help us and better us in the world? Calvin's interesting. I had a graduate student once, and we had this debate as to what was wrong with Calvin and what was wrong with Dennis the Menace. So we analyzed all the cartoons for psychiatric symptoms. I had the graduate student do this. And what we discovered was Dennis really is a kid with ADHD and a little oppositional. But Calvin is pre-psychotic. Calvin, he talks to this tiger, he does. Calvin this is real mental illness, is what we concluded.
I love Calvin.
Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes. And then, what you alluded to, the cartoons by what's his name, who does the cows in space and all the other stuff. Why am I blocking on his name? He has all these books.
You mean Dr. Seuss?
No, you mentioned it a minute ago. He has Larson. His Larson,
Gary
Larson stuff.
Gary Larson.
My favorite Larson cartoon of all time, to go off on a tangent, is Cows at Disneyland. And I looked at the cows standing in front of the Disneyland castle, and I'm looking at it, go, what is funny about this? I don't get it. And I kept looking, and then I realized that one of the kid cows, there were 2 kid cows and a parent and 2 parents. One of the kid cows was holding his hoof up like this behind the head of the other cow.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
He invented the meme, as we call it.
Right.
Now.
He invented the meme. So do you think if we could use entertainment to help people? And I've sat on the board in New York of a group called Epic, where we used entertainment, theater, to help people with autism take perspective. Because when you're an actor, you have to be somebody else.
Yep.
And we've talked about this, and they can learn how to do it, and it helps them learn social skills. There's some data to show it works, but can we really use entertainment to stem the tide, which would appear to be the coming of the destruction of our society? Will we ostensibly fiddle, meaning watch our phones while society is burning down?
Burns.
Yeah, what do you think?
Isn't it all about moderation? Really? I mean, everything.
Right, 2 hours of screen time is what that research study said is the best for teenagers in terms of achievement. We're way over that now.
Oh, way over.
Adults are as well. I would say.
Right, and the people who create this media, because we have a free society, are going to design it in such a way that's going to get you to get hooked on it.
Right, come back.
Right. So what's the most addictive of all the video games? Which is the one that's the most addictive, and they figured out, well, it's the one that in 10 minutes you could be done. And it's the one in which you jump off a magic bus and you land and there are only 100 combatants and you fight them and then you win. You know what game that is?
Fortnite.
Yeah. Fortnite's a $1 billion, the developers, it's $1 billion industry. They made $1 billion on it because it's the best of all games in the sense that you can lose and play again in 10 minutes. And not only that, as some kids that I work with who do, you can land and hide. And they hide until there's 2 or 3 people.
And then they
come
participate.
out,
Yeah.
And then they participate. Anyway, so.
Do you see, you think AI will control our entertainment at some point?
It'll have certainly something to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, look at it now. And it's just starting. Take your picture and put yourself in Disneyland and you look like this. And it does it for you.
Right. Well, and even more so,
It can create whole TV shows.
Oh, absolutely.
it'll track our analytics in such a way that it'll begin
algorithm.
creating technology. One of my favorite ideas was to develop an app called Screw the Man. I still haven't done it. We can end with this. So what's the Screw the Man app? The Screw the Man app, when you're not on your computer, every 30 seconds, it randomly visits a website. Not a pornographic site, but it just randomly. So all night long, every 30 seconds, it's visiting a different website. Well, the Google won't know what to do. What ad should they put in front of you? They're just going to go nuts. And I thought, I'm going to develop this and give it away for free. And then Google's going to come and pay me, $100 million so they can take it down.
Exactly.
So that's the future of entertainment. There we go. And
if you could do it for random callers.
Google will buy it and change it to screw the competitor.
Right. So the takeaway message is we love to be entertained. And
we like to
if
pretend.
you're still listening after an hour, you guys love to be entertained by our banter. That's right. We've had Craig as our second guest. We might have to have
Craig.
Come back sometime.
Nice to be here.
This is fun.
Yeah.
And speaking of entertainment, as we leave you today, don't forget to listen to the band Sigmund Freud. That's healthy entertainment, I may say.
It is healthy.
Do you all agree? Healthy entertainment.
Absolutely.
The band Sigmund Freud?
Healthy? Yeah. I mean, music
Music's
sets your
healthy.
soul free.
There you go.
And our album, The Fringes of My Mind, is about every weird song I ever thought of in every single genre. So if you like any genre you like,
It's
except
on
the
this
rap,
album.
It's
we've
there.
got it on.
It's on that album.
Well, enjoy. Thanks for being with us, and we will see you next episode.
And if you listen to their stories,
Just because we said it doesn't mean it's true. You're on your own.